What is up, Whale family, and welcome to Blockchain Beats, where we explore the pioneering artists taking audio and music to the next level of emerging tech and interactivity with NFTs. I'm very happy to have a very special guest today, Colin Benders, the Dutch modular synth master who crushes live performances with his massive wall of wires and lights. And now with his bustling virtual community, and so the enigmatic conductor is raising the bar for performance artists with interactive augmented reality experiences. Colin, that was a mouthful. Thank you for joining us today.
Wow, I was just thinking that's an impressive introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have to be honest. When trying to encapsulate, what you do and what this interview would be about, it was kind of difficult because you, my friend, are so creative and have so many endeavors that are really pushing the envelope that I couldn't quite capture it in such a brief synopsis. So super stoked to have you and be able to have the conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me. Good to be here.
So just to level set for everybody, could you just take a couple minutes and just for anyone not familiar with you or your music, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Colin Benders. That's also my real name, and I've been making music under that name for the past few years. I started off, I think something like 12 years ago. I made my own orchestra. And there I used to be a conductor for a whole band of musicians with strings, brass, drums, keys. The kicker was that it was a hip hop group, so there were something like 10 MCs on stage with us at all times. And this project was a lot of fun, and we did a lot of experimentation, trying to figure out new ways of making music together. And at some point, this led us to a whole direction of improvised music, where we did everything based on sign language and did our shows that way. But then I think something like, man, what was it? I think something like 6 years ago already, we quit the orchestra project, and instead I've been focusing 100% on the modular wall behind me. And I don't know, I've pretty much been just jamming with that ever since. Like I started off doing a little radio show with this where I was just streaming to something like 5 or 6 listeners, because I didn't know how else I was going to play with this. And it was a big switch going from orchestral music to something electronic. But then quickly I kind of went into YouTube streaming with this and gained an audience there. And through that, I got some bookings, and those became more bookings. And after that, I've just basically been touring for something like 3 years, just purely live with no releases, and be doing places like Awakenings and Berghain and a lot of things in the whole techno crowd, pretty much. And then since last year, when the whole lockdown happened, I've just been pretty much streaming. I think the first 3 months I've been streaming pretty much every day, and built a whole community around that. Now we have a big Discord group of synth geeks and lovers of electronic music, which brings me somewhat where I am today. Yeah, that's about what I do.
I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there, but I'm sure we'll delve into it. Some fascinating things about your background when I was looking into it. It looked like you always had a musical inclination, right? I believe I read that you were playing the trumpet in high school and whatnot, and that was one of your endeavors. And I don't know if you had a scholarship or something of that nature, right, to play at a special school.
Well, it's actually, trumpet is something I picked up when I think I was 4 years old, something like that.
Okay.
And my uncle had given me a trumpet, and I just got completely obsessed by that thing. And I'm a super ADD person, so I always get distracted with everything, but music was the only thing that kind of kept me focused. So when I was something like 12 years old, I went to the conservatory in The Hague, and I stayed there for until I was 17 years old. And after that, I just started touring with that instrument. But music has pretty much always been the only thing I could keep my focus on, and the only thing that really interested me. So that's always been what my life was all about.
Right. So in 2009, I believe you released your kind of debut album, right? The Hermit Sessions.
Yeah.
Which sold 75,000 copies, which today would be record smashing in the days of streaming, when you could actually sell physical copies. I mean, that's no small feat. So I would assume that you had a lot of press and a lot of attention from that alone.
Yeah, it's that project. It was kind of an unexpected success, really, because we had made that record together in a little flat somewhere at the 10th story, somewhere on the outskirts of where I live. And it had kind of been my little pet project where before I always used to be playing with other groups and just filling in the trumpet role there. But I kind of wanted to prove to myself that I could complete an album on my own and really just push forth my own vision on music. And that project became such a massive success back here in the Netherlands where I live, um, that I don't know, that one single year pretty much changed everything for me, because I always used to be kind of like this shy guy in the background of whatever room I was in, and all of a sudden I was kind of dropped to the front and
Right.
center of a stage. And yeah, it was quite spectacular. I've never experienced anything like that. That was quite crazy.
So the timing of this, were you already running the Kiteman Orchestra then, or was this prior to it?
This Hermit Sessions actually was the birth of the Kiteman Orchestra. Like, I made the album first, and when I was done with the album, I kind of figured like, hey, the only way I can actually play this live, like, I can either go for I don't know, just put up a laptop and play my beats that way. But that kind of felt boring to me, and I was like, well, that's just gonna be uncomfortable. I just want to make music and actually be there with people. So I started thinking about how I wanted to actually play it live, and that quickly grew into an entire orchestra of people. But that came with a different complication where I had to actually hang on, my screen is flipping. There we go. Um, like, all of a sudden, I had this massive group of musicians, but I didn't know how to conduct or how to really make them play the music that I wanted to. So I kind of made up my own way of directing that group. And yeah, from one day to the next, I was a conductor of an orchestra, I guess.
Right, and to a lot of acclaim, from what I understand, right? Like you guys were well reviewed. People like the the mashing of the genres. Were you always into hip hop, or was that something that kind of just evolved with you jamming out with people?
I think it was kind of an evolution of sorts. Like, I grew up listening a lot to classical and jazz music and whatever my mom was playing back in the back then, and it was mostly jazz music that I was really enamored by. And on top of that, I really enjoyed electronic things and more kind of the glitchy, alternative, weird things. Um, but I also had a whole group of friends who were really diehard hardcore into hip hop, and since I made beats, they asked me like, "Yeah, all you do all day is make these weird ambient noises, but can't you make a beat for once?" And uh, so that was really how I got into producing hip hop music back then. But I don't think I understood enough of the rules to really follow all the boom bap dogmas or whatever. And so it kind of came out my own version of it. And in the end, that's what people really liked about that record, was that it wasn't really a straightforward hip hop record. It was also not a straightforward band, but still they felt familiar with everything that was going on in there. But they recognized the particular sound that we were going with, and they liked it. So that's
Right.
kind of how that happened.
And so, and then did you just feel like that, that project ran its course and you turned to modular synths, or how did that kind of evolution happen?
Um, yeah, so pretty much one of the things that I'm always on the lookout for new projects and new things that interest me. And when I find something, I just kind of sink into it and just get obsessed for days on end. Um, and one of the things that I had right after I'd done that first record was that I kind of had an issue with how plastic and digital my beat sounded. So this became kind of like this ongoing quest for me, like, how can I get more organic results with what I'm doing? And one of the obvious things to look for was to look into the analog domain or into physical instruments. But with every instrument that I looked at, I kind of went like, so a 909 is pretty awesome as a drum machine, but it's also quite limited in what it does. So if you really want to expand from that sound, they're going to need to stack on X, Y, and Z in gear around that. But very quickly, I would kind of lose track of everything that was going on there. Um, And on top of that, like a lot of these other synths, they did like 2 or 3 super cool sounds, and that was it. The rest of it was not what you wanted to use it for. So it just didn't feel practical. So when another friend of mine, another producer, he told me like, "Hey, why don't you look into modular?" I was like, "Well, that actually sounds like a perfect solution." So that's kind of where my obsession kicked in, and there was no way for me to actually test what yeah, there was no way for me to test any of the modules beforehand. So I kind of went on a blind shopping spree. And combined with that was that the project that we'd just done, which was the Hermit Sessions, was successful enough to unfortunately fund my initial kind of shopping run of random modules, which didn't make sense together at all. So I just had this wall of modules that I didn't understand. So I think for like the first 2 years that I had that instrument, I didn't really look at it, didn't understand what to do with it, and just kind of made me feel guilty for how much resources I'd kind of sunk into it. Until at one point, I kind of had this. Um, I just gave it another try and went like, okay, I want to get something else than bird noises out of this. You know, bleeps and bloops is what modular was kind of known for. I wanted to get something else. So I just took a couple of days just nonstop studying how the whole patch flow of things worked and okay, how can I make more layers out of this. And at the end of that week, I had a 4-voice polyphonic loop running, and I believe it was a classical piece that I was trying to reproduce. And that was kind of where, for the first time, it kind of struck me what I would actually be able to do with this. And that's when I just started to keep digging into it deeper and deeper. And as I went down that rabbit hole, I found new modules that I liked. And as the modular system grew and started making more sense, the music started evolving. And yeah, I was kind of meanwhile while this was going on, I still had the orchestra, but we had played together for I don't know something like 6 years. And the last project we'd done was literally just walking up on a stage without writing any music at all and just looking at each other and writing everything on the spot. And we kind of felt like that was the ultimate project that we could possibly do.
Right.
And after that, it was kind of like, okay, now what? So everyone kind of went for themselves and started their own projects. And I still had my modular. So that's when I made the full switch to going electronic.
No, granted, I don't know a ton about, modular music, but is that the norm that it's more randomized sound outputs and what you do is a little bit of a differentiation in that you come from kind of a producing and conducting a live orchestra background, right? So you're piecing together, I would think, a little more deliberately in what you're trying to make.
Right. I actually think that the biggest reason why modular was known for bleeps and bloops for so long doesn't really have to do with the fact that that's what a modular sounds like, but more that there's a very steep learning curve in getting it to do what you want it to do. Like you're always 1 or 2 cables away from total complete chaos, and that's what you'll hear. But getting that into a refined result, which you can then later on reproduce into something else, just takes a little bit more studying. And I don't want to say that that I'm better in that way or something like that, but I do know that I've really made a point out of trying to understand as much as I could from that modular synth, so that it didn't just randomly spit music at me, but that I actually knew how to control it in a way that it did what I wanted it to play. And actually, if you look at what people are making these days with modular synths, as opposed to what's being made something like 10 years ago with it, like the scene was smaller, it was still pretty new for a lot of people. So the results were kind of comparable to when you first start learning piano or violin, and you're still playing Father John and stuff like that, And I guess, I guess it's more kind of a matter of mastering the learning curve than a modular being just for bleeps and bloops.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. Just looking at it is intimidating, let alone the thought process of having to understand what knob to use and where to switch cables and things of that nature.
Right.
So it's incredible to me to think that you would learn that, take the time, and then you had the opportunity to play live, and I'm sure people knew that whatever you had touched musically, was good. So that likely played a role. But you started playing live as well, and and I checked out some of these performances, crowd going absolutely crazy, right? Like depending on where you were, but it translates live in a way that I wouldn't naturally think looking at the instrument.
Nice. Well, it's kind of that was one of the yeah, one of the core principles for me always has been that I don't want a show to be interesting because there's a modular on stage, if that makes sense. Like, if the only unique point about a show is that it's a modular show, then I'm not doing a good enough job, I guess. So I really wanted to push beyond that and make it so that even if you didn't see a modular on stage, and even if you didn't know anything about what's going on there, you should still be able to like it. And that was the responsibility for me, to get it to a point where if you're listening to something that I'm doing, you should be able to just judge it by the music and not by the handicap of, oh, but it's a difficult instrument, you know? Um, so that was a lot of my time went into just studying this thing every day, and it's like still I'm playing that thing just nonstop. And I just want to make sure that like it's my choice that I want to play with this instrument, but that shouldn't mean that people accept less results than a DJ set or a different instrument that way.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the difference in playing live, like, having the trumpet being on stage with a hip hop, vocalist, as well as a number of instruments and that kind of feedback from the crowd versus, I assume you have to have your back to the crowd with this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, true. Well, it's that's the funny thing. Like with the orchestra, I had to have my back to the crowd as well, because then it was like a whole wall of musicians standing in front of me and looking for my directions. And in this case, you have a wall of modules standing there. And if I turn it the other way around, then you're going to see me standing behind a wall, and you won't see me and you won't see anything that's going on. So I've always kind of had to work with my back towards an audience, but in a way, I kind of feel comfortable with it that way. But I guess the biggest difference really is when you're playing with other musicians, you have personalities, you have actual people. And that was one thing that I kind of underestimated when I made my first group, when I first started playing with the orchestra, was that they were not just instruments. And there were people with feelings and needs, but also with a way of uniquely expressing themselves, and they had character. And that was a very special thing to share that with them, just standing there with a big group of musicians and trying to figure out a way how they could all express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable with, and that they recognize themselves in whatever you're doing. As opposed to a modular wall, which is pretty much just always telling you like, hey, haha, I'm so much smarter than you. Just make me do anything and I'll give you a result, and I'll also make you curious for what I could do better than this, And it's kind of like you have this unbeatable AI player in front of you who's always kind of taunting you to do something better and to do something deeper and go wilder with it, So but at the same time, that's also what I really like about it, is that it's it kind of feels like the ultimate studio partner in a way, where I still always get surprised by the results. I still always just try to explore new things on it, and whenever I find something that excites me, then I end up giving more back into the system, and it gives more back to me, and it's I don't know, ultimately it kind of allows me to be both in the seat of creator and listener at the same time. And that's what I really like about these instruments.
It's amazing. It's, the more we talk about it, the more I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and the expansive opportunities that it provides, right? Like there's so much runway and white space that you can take with that. So COVID happened. Performances live, obviously were impacted for some time. Did that have any effect on your creative process and the things you were doing?
Absolutely. Oh my God. That was the grand reckoning, I guess. That was like COVID happened, and all of a sudden it just made me realize how stupid I'd been for putting all my eggs in one basket, pretty much. Like the entire musical industry is kind of leaning on the fact that as a musician you live off of your live income. Like you give away your music royalties in exchange for more exposure in Spotify. You do all these things that are kind of additionals, and everything kind of serves as promotion for whatever you're doing on stage. But the stage is where you what you do and what your livelihood is and all that. On top of that, it's also the place where I feel so much at home after just doing, like, I don't know, 3-4 shows a week for an extended time. Then all of a sudden, not doing that anymore made a very big impact. But yeah, it was pretty much when COVID happened, I just realized, like, I never considered a world wherein someone would tell me, like, hey, that thing that you do, like making music in front of people, yeah, that's not allowed anymore. So would you please stop doing that? That's
Right.
and even though I fully understand it, and I 100% support and stand behind the whole reasoning of, well, you know what, let's better just make sure that things are okay before we start opening everything up again. It did leave me with a problem, like, okay, so what the hell am I gonna do now? Like, what's next? And the only thing I could think of was, like, well, there's gonna be a lockdown here. There was already a lockdown happening in Italy and in France, and we'd seen it in other parts of the world. So the only thing I could think of was it might be a good idea to bring some bare essentials from my studio and set them up in our guest room back at home, which was pretty much like this washing room where you just put up like a rack to dry out your clothes and stuff like that. And I figured, like, you know what, I'm just gonna put my stuff here and I'll make a home studio with everything. I still had my cameras from streaming back in 2015, I think. So I just made this whole setup in that room, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna start streaming, and I'll do it every day because I don't have anything else to do. Um, and that became, I think that was the best decision I could have ever made. Like, um, what happened next was that I did these streams and people would come to them, and everyone was still kind of in this weird early COVID phase of, well, I don't know what's going on. Is this the apocalypse? It's like this
Right.
weird kind of vibe going on anywhere. Um, but then they would come to the stream and just say, like, oh, okay, guess I'll just chill here for a second. Thank you for bringing some normalcy in this. And because I did this every day, they would come back every day. And at some point, they started getting to know each other and just chatting about life and what things were like back at home. And that was kind of a cue for me to go, like, hey, I guess we should build a Discord for this. And yeah, just from one day to the other, I had this Discord group, which within a week was something like 1,500 people in one channel, just talking to each other about everything. And it was music related, but also just their own life and pets and food and tips and tricks for how to get through the whole COVID lockdown vibe and little fun games to play together. And it just evolved into this beautiful community of people from all over the world who were, well, they had one thing in common, which was that they were all in lockdown, and they all would just come back every day just to talk to each other through the entire process. And I don't know, this the whole innocent idea of just, you know what, I'm going to stream every day, and people can follow me practicing on my instruments, became me being a part of a community where I would provide music and they would bring in their own life and their own social circles and their own everything that was keeping them busy. And it really became this community I wanted to be a part of. And it's still active today. And I think yesterday we crossed the 6,000 member points. And it's the same
Wow.
people from back then and more people from all over the world. And it's I don't know. It really became. I'm very proud of what happened there, but more proud in a way of, God, I'm so happy I'm a part of this. you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So that.
I don't know if this is, if the heightened activity during COVID really drove this, or you were already well on your way, because if I take a look at your YouTube alone, you're at 35,000 subscribers. I mean, that's not a paltry sum, right? Twitch, you're at 9,000. You have been making videos and streams for 5 years. So, you certainly were on your way, but I guess COVID really ramped that up for people maybe
Yeah.
outside of the modular synth community, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's. I really think that if there's one thing positive about the whole lockdown phase is that people looked at the internet differently. Like, it always used to be this thing which was very practical, and you look there, and, well, yeah, chat rooms was for geeks and everything. But you you had your practical information there, but outside of Reddit and Twitter, where basically you have like a one-directional communication with people, and you just say what you want and then you log out. All of a sudden, this was their entire social circle and their social community. And I think there's something beautiful that happened in that, which is that um, I don't know, there's something very unique about how an online community behaves and shares their life with each other. And this kind of combination of anonymity while still being in full control how you present yourself to others, and how and what an equal playing ground it is in a way. Like when I'm playing a live show, I can maybe talk to 5, 6 people, and then I have to run backstage and shut myself in and be completely overloaded from social interaction. But when I'm in a Discord channel, I can talk to thousands of people all day and have actual conversations about everything, and there's not a club blaring in the background. And it's just this different thing. And what I've seen happening a lot in this past year is that also artists and creators have found very creative ways of how to turn the online world into a stage on its own, and kind of started exceeding the whole surrogate that it used to be, where streaming was just a substitute for the actual live thing, but it wasn't the same. Nowadays, you have like completely tailored projects which you can only experience in an online setting,
Right.
which just make more sense by watching it through your screen and being a part of that community. And that's I think COVID just really sends all that in a whole different, yeah, kind of shifted the gears on that. And I don't think we would have seen any of that if that hadn't happened. So I think that's one thing I'm pretty grateful for out of all
Right.
this.
So COVID helped kickstart a lot of this creativity. I found it very interesting that you had actually been experimenting with NFTs 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
true.
so you were at the forefront. You didn't come and get involved in this run up over the past spring. Can you talk to me a little bit about what were your thoughts when you were working on these and getting involved?
Right. Yeah. It's actually, there's a funny story behind this because it was actually Will Shark who told me about Super Rare. It was way back in the day. Well, not way back in the day. We're talking like something like 2, 3 years ago, but in crypto terms, that's like ages ago. Um, I was pretty active in this card game Gods Unchained, and I used to write these little reports on what was going on in the state of the game and all that stuff. And that was kind of like my pastime, little pet project, was that I just really enjoyed playing there. And I actually, through those articles that I wrote, I got in touch with Will Shark about that, and he told me about Super Rare and about the whole online community and what NFTs was getting into in a different way. And that's when I found that platform it wasn't really active back then, so they pretty quickly accepted my application. And I just kind of started experimenting with what other things I could do with NFT, and there were some use cases that I really didn't. My screen is bugging again. Oh, there we go. There were some use cases that I had for NFT that I didn't really find in different places. So I think I minted one NFT on Rarible as well, where you can kind of hide material and tracks behind the NFT. But yeah, pretty much I was just kind of playing around with all these things and seeing what I could do with this, but mainly because I was really fascinated by what this whole movement was becoming at that time. So this was also back when crypto voxels was still just the mainland, and I don't know, it was right after the whole crash had happened, so no one really cared about blockchain anymore for a long time, which was a very interesting little playground phase where everything was just about, hey, this is cool, maybe you should try it.
Right.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that time.
Uh, props to you for actually everything that you've been building and doing was just authentic, right from the get-go. It was part of your curiosity and desire for experimentation and community building and just involvement. So that authenticity is something we love to see here because, as you know, so many musicians and artists come in trying to just do what's in vogue and ride the wave a little bit, whereas this
Right.
is, this was just genuine wanting to build. And so I see the question, I'm trying to work up to it, guys, but I see the question has been happening for 30 minutes now. People want to know what is going on, what is behind you and looming over you.
Oh wow. Yep. So we are talking about Jack in the corner.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right there, the dude standing there. Yeah, that's pretty much Jack. And I got to tell you about how we got to this point because so after last year I did where I did a lot of streaming. I kind of had this moment where I thought, like, you know what? I like this streaming so much, and I feel where this could be headed. Like, um, I can physically play for 1,000 people in one club in one region, and have it kind of physically region blocked in a way, just to however far people are willing to travel for it. Or I can play right here from my studio and reach everyone in the world who's interested in the same niche that I am. Um, and kind of cater to this community that has been forming. And I just kind of felt like, hey, even if clubs were to reopen, would I still like doing this, and would I still enjoy it? And the answer was like, well, hell yeah, I want to keep doing this. But with that also came that I wanted to take things a little bit more serious, and I wanted to kind of step it up a little bit. Like I'd been doing it just with my own cameras and putting up these wonky little setups. I decided to kind of really treat it as if I would spend for the preparations for a new tour or something. So I got talking to some people who know more about cameras than I do, and one thing pretty quickly popped on our radar, like, hey, augmented reality is actually pretty awesome what you can do with it, but there's not a lot of people really playing around with it just yet. And that just really caught my attention because I've thought like, hey, pretty much if you can start working in an augmented environment like this, you can start kind of just decorating your physical studio in a whole new one, and start making very very weird things happening. Like as a kid, I was always a great fan of that mover Roger Rabbit, you know,
Right.
with the little cartoons running around everywhere. And I kind of thought like, well, if that is what we can do with this, then let's see how far we can go with it. And I've been working with a couple of people who are great with visuals for some time, and we got to talking, and they really liked the idea, but it was also like this whole new world for them as well. So the past 6 months, we've been really just digging into what we could do with this. And what we came up with is something that we can probably best show. Are there people talking in Twitch right now? There we go. Yep.
Yep.
Fantastic. I just see someone popping up. That's probably the best way. Actually, I think the guy who just dropped in there is the guy who created or did a big part of the development for Jack. Because everything is connected through Unreal Engine, and from Unreal Engine, it's connected to the cameras themselves. And when they move, they still track the position properly. Yeah, exactly like this. And well, this way we can kind of do a whole real-time augmented reality setting during my streams. So the idea behind Jack is that whenever someone talks in my stream, they get a little Jack right there, and they get to interact with it by throwing in some chat commands, like there's a dance. I believe they can even break dance, and there's some cheers. There we go. And actually, if people want to give it a try for themselves, then I just encourage you to jump in on the Twitch stream right now. Like we have it connected to to your stream, and yeah, you can just play around with it. And these little jacks are pretty much the start of a whole journey that we're getting into right now, because there's so many things we can do with this. Um, Like the first one that we are working on right now is making it so that we can connect or mint these jacks as NFTs, so that you can have your own jack and connect it to your Twitch account, and from there on, you just get your own personal jack. And then from there on, we can start adding all kinds of little things to it. We can make like jetpacks on it, or little hats for Halloween, or even start working on mounts and stuff like that. But it goes farther than that, because the next step is probably going to be that we want to try building our own VR space, where you can just walk around in a digital rendered version of the studio with one of these jacks, while in real time I am playing the soundtrack for whatever platform game we have going on, and you see me in real time playing the whole thing, because we have a whole Connect set up to it. And while people are playing in that platform, the people who are watching the stream can see the other people playing the platform, and it's just this whole weird interconnected thing that we're getting into. And the only reason why we're doing it is because it would be awesome if it works. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at right now. Like, we have Jack working, and I see more and more people actually jumping in and playing around with it. That's
Right,
awesome.
very cool. I was giving them a little hint that there are commands they can use as well.
Very good. Yep. There's a bunch of exclamation mark commands. Like, I believe there's dance, there is yay, there's wave, there's breakdance. I believe there's even a waza command. So there's a bunch of things you can do with this. And like right now we have we've recently just started with the whole new streaming season, but the idea is that over the next few months, we just want to keep on evolving this world that we have going on here. So the aim is that by the end of this streaming season, you will not recognize a thing in this room, and it will just be this completely crazy madness of weird VR, AR elements going on everywhere. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun actually working towards that. And one of the things I really want to do is also start inviting other artists to start providing assets for this world. Or yeah, there's a lot of things we can do with this from here on.
Everyone's saying that they expect you to glance over to your right to take a look at them. And seeing them down there.
No, that's actually it's pretty hard for me to do everything in mirror, but
no, but yeah, I don't know if you actually see them, but that's very cool. If I understand correctly, you're talking about them having the ability to move around your studio as well, right?
Yep, definitely. That's one of the things, is that if we get everything to work properly, and we have it's like, if we actually manage to do it, the ideas are there, we just need to get it to that point. But then we will have people actually able to move around through the studio and walk in probably a different client, which is either going to be something in VR chat, or something that we really custom built for this. Because there's one thing with streaming, which is you have this latency issue. So if right now you would have direct controls over it, it would take 30 seconds before you see something happening. But if you reverse that and you get into a client with a 3D rendered version of this entire studio, then you will not have that issue anymore. So that's one of the things we're looking at right now. But that's probably going to be step 5 or 6 down the road. While right now we're just at step 1. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
I mean, this is so basically, you've taken the interactivity to the next level with your level of engagement day to day with your streams. You've created a community, and then on top of it, you've layered it with an augmented reality, so people can literally join you in studio.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's the next step.
be part of the stream. That's incredible. And so are there plans to do other things with Jack? It seems like such a cool mascot. I would think that there's a lot of opportunities for branding or NFTs or things like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one of the next steps. I hinted at it earlier. Was we're currently preparing a big NFT drop for Jack. They'll be available not on the main Ethereum network, but I've recently joined up with Rally. And through there, it's going to be very easy to connect your Twitch account to your Rally account, get a Jack NFT, and then from there on customize it. But the cool thing is, from there on, we can also provide the assets for Jack, so that if people want to build third-party games around Jack, for example, then you have your character be operational in all these different worlds. So yeah, there's a lot of things we can build on top of this, and yeah, I don't really know where it's gonna go just yet, but that's what mostly excites me. Like, yeah, I can only imagine where we're gonna be 1 year from now, but the whole route exploring whatever's gonna happen with it, that's what really excites me.
Here's some concept that you had shared with me. Is this for that
Yeah,
rally project you
exactly.
talked about?
Yep. Yeah, it's we have from left to right, we have Jack, we have Jacques, which is the second one with the little hats. We have Jacked, which is the red one. Then we have Mini Jack, and then we have York. And York is kind of my power animal. That's the one I kind of connect with the most. But,
Right, I was gonna say I can relate to that one visually.
right?
For sure.
And these were basically like the first concept sketches. Like literally, Jack happened by just holding up 3 cables and making a little character out of it. But these concept sketches are what Tristan came up with. He's the guy who's mostly on the visuals, and then you have Sam, who's mostly on making everything work and not break. So, but these are the concepts, and Tristan is now building everything on top of these.
Very cool. I know you said that you're early, but is this? Do you have a timeline on when you're anticipating this being something people can take part in?
I think right now the idea is that we probably are gonna launch the NFT versions of Jack somewhere October. That's also when the next release, which is kind of like this triple techno vinyl project, is going to be dropping around the same time. And from there on, Jack's going to be here to stay. But until that time, people can already play around with Jack and try and interact with it. Yeah, so that's going to be the big one in terms of the NFT side that we're exploring. And meanwhile, we're also working on something else, which is going to be, which I think is going to be pretty interesting in a way. I sent you that link of the vaults, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fun one, because I have got myself into this weird problem where if I stream and record music for something like 3-4 days a week and just make new material every time that I do it, I'm obviously going to end up with a massive list of jams and of recorded material. And in order to properly select the stuff that is good, well, I can go through that list on my own, but I figured like it's going to be so much more fun. Like if you click on one of these stems that you see down there, if you click on it, then you also see the multi-tracks in there and stuff like that. Yeah, just on the link itself. Then there you actually have all the individual tracks for things. So the way I have it set up is that whenever I'm done recording a stream, I upload all the stems to the community, and they edit the silences into it and stuff like that, make it a little bit more comprehensible. And they upload it to IPFS, and from IPFS we upload it back to this vault. And the vault is accessible for everyone to play around with and make their own remixes and do their own stuff. And from there on, it's pretty much a non-commercial license, but just use it creatively for whatever you want. And if there is a brand who wants to do something with it, they're going to have to talk. But that was one of the issues that I had with having so much material, was selecting the right things. But the other one was how am I actually going to pay for the mixes and masters of all this material? So the next thing that we did was I launched a community token pretty recently, and again, that was on the Rally platform. And the idea behind that pretty much is that the community, by buying into the token, they can unlock access to the vault, for example, but also to they can purchase new music with it or vinyl and stuff like that. And through that, I generate enough funds to mix everything properly, master everything properly, and whatever is left of it afterwards, I can use that to do weird things. Like one thing I did last year was, as a thank you to the entire community that I had massed up through the streams, I sent everyone a free vinyl, like a physical vinyl of some of the highlights of the stream that I've been doing. And I just sent them to them like, hey, you pay shipping costs, I give you a vinyl. And that was my way of telling them like, hey, thanks for being here. But thanks to how particularly this rally system is working, all of a sudden I can actually afford to make generosity one of the core principles of the whole business model, because simply by supporting the token, it is generating enough in rewards for me to just keep on developing new projects like this, or working on the next levels of Jack, or do a new vinyl release. Or even one of the things that I'm working on right now is going to be kind of a second page aside from the vault, which is going to be probably something like an open source Spotify player, where people can just listen to like the finalized mixed and mastered versions of all the material that's there. But also on top of that, I am talking to other musicians and artists that I appreciate, and just tell them like, hey, here's studio budget and money for food and whatever you need in this period, and a carte blanche. Just make whatever you think is interesting and feed it back into the community, so that vault actually becomes even more interesting than just the music that I make. And I kind of feel that if this works out well, then it's going to be a positive feedback loop of the more interesting the content, the more interesting the community, and the more interesting the community, the bigger the support, and the bigger the support, the more interesting the content, etc. So yeah, it's pretty much one of the ideas with the vault is going to be that it's I think it's going to be a label, but I'm not quite sure how I should kind of explain it. It really is a community vault of material that I make, but also that people that I'm interested in are gonna make. And instead of trying to sell music, I'm just gonna look at how can I kind of give thanks to the community for supporting me. So the whole paradigm is gonna be reversed, pretty much. That's how I look at it right now.
That's incredible. So social token on top of everything else, you've basically layered every possible nuance of interaction that you could with the technology available. So super impressive, and I'm sure that your community and your fans really appreciate all the effort that you put into that. I guess the next progression of that would be having familiarity with NFTs and the technology that they entail. Do you foresee any opportunity with the smart contract to do some cool interactive elements relative to what you're doing in your music and possibly the AI stuff?
Actually, yes. There's one thing that there's one thing in terms of smart contracts that that's kind of stuck in my mind, and I just cannot let go of it anymore. Is trustless copyright, pretty much. And this is something that I think could work. It's still very early stages, and I'm talking to people like whether or not they would even like having something like this. But pretty much it would function as a splice on steroids, like everyone who has been producing with splice samples and such. Um, I think there's a way of making the usage of samples and loops and stuff like that so trustless that you don't even have to declare the samples you're using anymore, simply because you've already tracked it up front. But this is something that's still going to be I'm still thinking about a lot right now. There's another one which is a friend of mine is working on that right now, which is kind of making publishing material a bit more insightful, so that you can actually make sense of the publishing statements your publisher is giving you, which so far right now is a complete mess and no one really knows what they're looking at. But there's a lot of things in smart contract that there's so many opportunities in there, and that's just what I've been figuring out every day that I've been involved with blockchain. It was like, sure, you can it can be interesting because it can change your life with whatever wealth you're getting out of it, but that's not part that interests me so much. It's like the implication of these trustless systems, or even the implication of having a digital unique asset, that's just completely mind-blowing to me. And there's so many ways to expand on that, but yeah, these things take time. But I'm definitely excited to see where all this is going to end up, because it's such a no-brainer for what it's going to contribute in general.
Yeah, and we're definitely excited as well, just seeing what you've brought to the table so far. And it's always a pleasure to talk to someone who's really innovative and pushing the envelope in the space. You had mentioned a vinyl release coming up, I think. You talked
Yep.
about Jack having maybe his, foundational NFT launching in October. I don't know if there's a little bit more detail into what the nuances of that. Could you just tell us what's next for Colin Benders? What can we look forward to, and how can we get involved with your next steps?
Right. Well, let me see. The first thing really is, sorry, my screen bugged out again. It just keeps going to, there we go. Yeah, that's better. So the yeah, for now, the biggest thing is going to be these streams. I just intend to keep on doing this for as much time as I can afford to do it. And then I have the vaults, which is going to be launching the label, and the vinyl release. I'm going to be working on some new live projects to go once that clubs reopen, actually. But also at the same time, I'm kind of taking things one step at a time. Like, I also want to see how people react to this, and then allow myself to kind of alter my course based on that. Like, I can set up a whole roadmap of things which I think are going to be interesting, but if someone comes up with a completely different idea which is way cooler, then I want to be able to just jump on that instead. But um, one thing I do know for sure is that everything that we're working with right now is something that we really want to expand on. So yeah, there's lots of fun to be had. Let me put it that way.
So basically, just gotta stay up to date with you on your socials and make sure that we're following, because it seems like these things can move a little bit, may come a little bit earlier, may come a little bit later, and there may be something we don't expect. The Discord's lit up with people asking me for your social links, because I think they
Nice.
want to come get part of those social tokens on Rally. They want to become part of your Discord and certainly follow you on
Awesome.
Twitch. So we will share that and make sure everyone has it. But I'm
Nice.
definitely focusing on my dancing right now, so I can't type it in the chat. We will do that at the tail end of this.
Perfect.
Couple of questions, if you still have a few more minutes to spend with us.
Sure.
Questions from the community. One of the questions was, do you find it harder to collaborate with other artists live? Have you done collaborations with your modular synths on stage, or maybe even in studio, or is it strictly a solo act right now?
Um, yeah, that's an interesting one, because with a modular, you can set it up in multiple ways, and there is like, one part of the modular setup is that you first build your instrument by connecting the cables that you want in the proper places, and then you play it. But you could end up building the wrong instrument for the occasion. So that was something that kind of took me a little bit more time to wrap my mind around. Like, I know how to play it on my own, but if I'm gonna be doing something very heavy drum related, while either there's already a drummer who's doing stuff, or it's a completely different setting for it, then it doesn't make sense. But I've been jamming more and more with this, and I've been doing a lot, for example, with Speedy J, who has this. He has started his own YouTube channel, which is a lot of very experimental explorations of electronic music. And he's pretty much inviting musicians from all over the world to come and collaborate with him and just try new things. And through that, I've been learning to kind of yeah, I don't know, play together with other people a little bit better with this system, because that was, at first it was a bit of a challenge, but there's a lot of things that actually start making a lot more sense now, and that's yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Very cool, and makes sense. And someone commented, with so much gear on stage, they could imagine it could be difficult, or even in studio, to navigate around each other and whatnot. I guess it depends on how
Right.
large of a studio you have, right? You
That's
may
good.
be you may be in the mood for expansion as you continue to build. Someone asked, do you do concerts in a virtual space, meaning crypto voxels or Decentraland? Perhaps Jack could show up and do a show. Obviously, you do
Right.
your Twitch and your streaming, but any plans to take this into other realms of the metaverse?
Definitely. But I do need guidance for that because, like I used to be quite active in crypto voxels. I think it was something like 2019 when I first got into that, and I really enjoyed that space. But at the same time, it felt um, for bringing something like this into that, I didn't immediately see how I could optimally do something like that. And outside of that, I haven't really kept up with what other with the other spaces that have been popping up afterwards. But I would definitely like to find out more about that because I would very much like um, like there's this very clear image I have in mind where someone just puts on a VR helmet and all of a sudden they are Jack, like they are their own NFT Jack that they have, and they can actually control it and walk around in the studio and stand next to me and just jam out in the actual room like that. Um, it's just a matter of figuring out the right platforms to do it. So yeah, it is on my radar, but it's still in a research stage. Let me put it that way.
Very cool. Someone asked, how are they visually seeing you right now? What's your studio setup? Are there other people manning cameras? Is it all automated?
At this point, right now for this event, I have one guy sitting on top of my studio right now, and like he can on cue zoom in on whatever jacks are going on, or he can zoom in on the synth behind me and stuff like that. But we tried to build it in such a way that I could man everything on my own. Like I can um, Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So the way everything is set up right now is the camera switching. Like this is one of the three cameras that we have set up, but there is two more cameras in other places in the room. Like there we go. And all of these cameras have the same technology behind it, but the camera switching and everything is automated as well. So um, basically, I can just walk up into the room, switch everything on, and start streaming without needing external help for it. But to get to that point, I did need a lot of time with some amazing developers to get it to that point.
I can only imagine. Even just the art on Jack is impeccable. It looks so a great 3D rendering. So very cool stuff. Someone actually made a comment. They're getting Doctor Who vibes. I really don't know how to take that, but I take it as a compliment because I actually love Doctor Who,
Nice. Oh
especially
man,
old
absolutely.
Doctor Who. Someone had asked any advice for musicians looking to get into NFTs and what's going on with technology now.
Right. Yeah, I think there's one thing that I mostly try to consider, and that is um not so much how to do things or what technology to go for or what platform to release and such, but the biggest thing I would think about is how are you going to balance the whole how are you going to balance the exclusivity of an NFT versus the accessibility of having an audience who wants to actually hear it. Um, and this is more of a conceptual thing that you have to think about with something like this, which is an NFT really caters in a way into defining an exclusive part of your community and your audience and give them something unique just for them. But it could very well be that that's not your intention and that you actually want to do something which is cool for everyone. But then you have to think about how you're actually going to do that. So for me, the biggest way to balance that was by doing the community token, um, because well, yeah, the more people we have, the bigger the fun we actually get to share. And the NFT was like the people who want to really define themselves within that community and go like level deeper into it. They will be able to do so through having their own characters in there. But yeah, that's something that I would really consider for yourself, like more on a philosophical level. Like, how do you want people to access your music, and how accessible do you want your music to be? And once you have an answer to that question, then probably the tools are going to find their way to you, because there's so many tools and different ways of doing things these days. It's yeah, it's pretty mind blowing.
Someone commented it seemed like a lot of your art and NFTs were generative and synthesis oscillators and the visualizations of it. Any plans to bring the actual audio to NFTs?
Yep, definitely. It's the NFTs that I've been doing. They were all pretty much my studies of video synthesis. Like, that was something I wanted to get into for a very long time, and I kind of told myself, like, hey, I'm not gonna splurge right away into getting a whole visual or a whole video modular just yet, but let me at least explore what I can do with this. And at the same time, let me explore the NFT format. So I used to do it all kind of in secret and not on my own name, because back then it still kind of felt like crypto was not something as generally accepted in the artist world as it is today. Um, but yeah, the one thing I've never done so far yet is really put out music NFTs yet, which is, well, aside from the one that I did on Rarible, which is like, I actually have one song locked in there, which can only be found by the person who claims that NFT, and they get to share it with how many people they want. But um, yeah, outside of that, I haven't done anything yet. But one of the things that I really want to do is actually get the proper video synth set up next to the modular itself, and then kind of make the soundtrack to these visual works, and at the same time kind of make visuals to the music and see what comes out of that. So that's one thing. And the other part, but that's not so much NFT, but that has to do with the community token, is that I feel that the whole token part empowers me to release all my music um, accessible just about freely if I can. So that's not directly the same thing, but it is powered by blockchain. Let me put it that way.
Very cool. People are hammering me for that Discord link, so please be sure to DM it to me, or if it has a I don't know, you have to reach a certain threshold to be able to just give it a keyword, right? Like ours is Discord GG/whale. I don't know if you have Colin Benders yet.
For me, it's discord.gg/modular mayhem.
Modular mayhem.
Yeah,
Great,
modular
great.
mayhem. That's the
So
one.
anyone watching this, or if this is archived and on YouTube when you're watching it, Modular Mayhem, and you can go to this Discord, learn about the token, and take part in this vibrant community. That sounds amazing. I'm sure lots of people will be coming over.
Awesome. Well, guys, you're more than welcome. Join me there, because, yeah, community is more fun with more people.
So, Colin, I know actually you said you are going to go live with some music in a little bit later today, right?
Yep.
One of your streams in about 30 minutes or an hour or so?
True. 30 minutes from now, I'm just going to allow myself a few minutes to flip around a couple of settings, but then the stream itself is actually going to go live, and it will be live on YouTube and my Twitch accounts. The Twitch is just Colin Benders, and the YouTube, I think, the same thing. Yeah, you'll find me there.
Yeah, no, we definitely have those links to drop in the Discord, so everyone can go there and check it out. You can come and participate with your jacks, right? The jacks will be able to jump in and dance around these comments. Someone asked if the big jack in the corner responds to the music, or if plans are in scope for that.
Right. Yeah, that's still one of the plans that we have. The little jacks do. Like, right now I don't have a kick running, but whenever there's a kick running, they all start head bopping like this.
Oh, very cool.
And there's some other things that we're still working on implement, kind of integrating that way. For now, Big Jack is just standing there acting tough and kind of making sure things stay peaceful.
He was. There was a lot of anxiety for about 30 minutes of this interview where people were wondering what was going on.
Yeah, true. No, yeah, Jack is kind of like my virtual bodyguard, I guess. Yeah, but Jack is going to be upgraded to do lots of cool things too.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait. We will be on the lookout for the NFTs, for the label. We'll be heading over to the community to take part, and I may even, try my hand at some music remixing. I think you'd be surprised at what I could serve up with some of these stems. So
Awesome.
I'm about to get dangerous, Colin. You may regret
Yes.
telling me about this. Colin, thank you
Go
so
for it.
much for taking the time for us today. We don't want to keep you. I know you have to get ready for your stream. We will drop everybody the links. And once again, amazing stuff you're going to
Awesome.
be doing in the future, you're doing now. And we'll likely love to have you back at some point, because I know you're going to continue to push the envelope.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Anytime. I mean, I'm very happy to be a part of your community. So we'll be glad to be back anytime.
All right. Have a good one.
Nice. Awesome.